Hello and welcome to IP Study video lectures. And today we are going to discuss chapter 13 from grade 7 social science, and the chapter name is Weather and Climate. In this chapter we will be discussing few important topics, and these are weather and climate, atmospheric temperature, atmospheric pressure, wind, moisture and humidity, and lastly precipitation. So now let us discuss what weather and climate is. So when we talk about weather and climate, so what do we mean by weather or climate? So weather and climate are the two important elements of our environment. Okay, and weather and climate, these two play an important role and also have influence on the landforms, vegetations, wildlife, and also on the lifestyle of humans. For example, the food we eat, or the clothes we wear, or even the type of houses we build. So weather and climate, it has influence on all of this. We often use weather and climate interchangeably, but in reality their definition, their meaning and characteristics, they are distinct. Okay, so now let us understand what weather means. So weather refers to the, or weather is defined as the atmospheric condition of a particular place at a particular point of time. Okay, and one important characteristics of weather is it changes rapidly, even from hour to hour or from one day to another. For example, the weather can be very hot or sunny at 12 o'clock, but after an hour it can become cloudy, so it changes rapidly. So on the other hand, climate. So climate refers to the average weather condition observed in a particular region for a long period of time, maybe 20 years or 30 years. So unlike weather, climate does not change rapidly. Okay, we cannot say that the climate at 12 o'clock is this and at 1 o'clock it is different. No. So climate, it is relatively stable, okay, and it does not change frequently. Climate is usually determined for a large area to understand the weather pattern of that particular period. For example, the climate of Rajasthan. We know that the climate of Rajasthan is hot and dry. But how have we come to this conclusion? Because we know that the average weather pattern of the Rajasthan. We know the climate or the temperature of Rajasthan, it is mostly hot and the amount of rainfall is very less. So we have come to the conclusion that the climate of Rajasthan is hot and dry. Okay, so weather and climate. Weather changes rapidly. On the other hand, climate, it does not change rapidly. Now let us see elements of weather and climate. So various factors plays important role, or it influences the weather and climate of a region. And these are atmospheric temperature, atmospheric pressure, wind, humidity and precipitation. So in order to understand the weather, we have to rely on all these elements. Okay, now let us see these different elements. Firstly, atmospheric temperature. So what do we mean by temperature? So temperature refers to the degree of hotness or coldness of the air. Okay, so temperature, it is measured by instrument called thermometer, and the standard unit of measurement is degree Celsius, or the standard unit for measuring temperature is degree Celsius. So on this degree Celsius or Celsius scale, the freezing point of water is 0 degree Celsius and the boiling point is 100 degrees Celsius. So now let us see insulation and isotherm. We know that sun is the main source of heat and energy, and sun radiates its heat and energy in all directions, and earth also receives this small portion of heat radiated by the sun. Okay, earth receives only 1 million part of this radiation or solar radiation. This solar radiation which the earth receives is also called the incoming solar radiation or insolation. Incoming solar radiation or insolation. So now let us discuss isotherms. So what are isotherms? So these are lines joining places with equal temperature. So on a particular map, you will normally see different lines. If you see the climate or weather map of a particular region, you might see different lines like this. So these are the lines that joins the places with equal temperature. Suppose if this is 20 degrees, so that means this whole line or this whole places have 20 degrees Celsius. The temperature is 20 degrees. Similarly 19. So this whole line, this is 19 degrees Celsius. So these lines that joining places with equal temperature, it is called isotherms. So now let us see the factors controlling temperature or the factors that influence temperature. We know that the temperature is not equal at different places, or all the places do not have equal temperature, because temperature depends upon the insolation or the incoming solar radiation. And we know that the different places receive different amount of insolation. So that is why temperature varies or changes from place to place and even time to time. So let us see the various factors which control the temperature. Firstly, latitude. So the inclination of sun rays depend upon the latitude of a place, right? So we know that. So let us talk about the latitude, right? And the inclination of the sun ray. We know that the places near the equator receive vertical sun rays. That means these vertical rays, they heat up small region, that means it provides more heat. But on the other hand, when we move towards the poles, the angle of sun rays, it becomes slanting. That means this sun rays, it hits a large area. That means it provides less heat to this region. Thus, the temperature here is cold or less. Thus, the temperature decreases from equator towards the pole. Second point is altitude. So we know that the air becomes thinner as we move up or with the increase in elevation. Thus, with the increase in elevation, the temperature also decreases because the air becomes thinner and it can hold less amount of heat. That is why mountainous regions are mostly cold compared to plains. Third point, winds and ocean currents. So wind and ocean currents raises the temperature. How? A wind that blows from hot areas, it raises the temperature of the places over which it blows. On the other hand, wind that blows from colder region, it lowers the temperature of a place over which it blows. And same case and also same case for ocean currents. The ocean currents, which are warm ocean currents, it increases the temperature of the coastal region which it touches. On the other hand, cold ocean currents lowers the temperature. Now, the fourth and the last point, that is distance from the sea. Coastal areas have milder temperature or moderate temperature compared to the areas that are far away from the sea. This is because ocean, they have higher heat capacity compared to the land, meaning they absorb and release heat more slowly. On the other hand, land get heated more rapidly, but it also cools down very rapidly. Okay, so coastal region have a very moderate temperature in compared to the areas that are far away from the sea. So now let us discuss the heat zones of the world. So as we have already discussed that the temperature, it is not equally distributed on the earth. Different region has different temperature, right? And this temperature, it goes on decreasing from the equators towards the pole, or from the lower latitudes to the higher latitudes. Okay, so depending on this variation in temperature, there are three different heat zones in the world. Okay, firstly the torrid zone, secondly temperate zone, and lastly the frigid zone. So now let us discuss each one of them. So firstly, let us discuss the torrid zone. So the torrid zone, it extends from Tropic of Cancer to Tropic of Capricorn, or 23.5 degree north to 23.5 degree south. Okay, in this zone the sun rays are very vertical or direct, so it receives the maximum amount of insolation. So the sun rays, it is very vertical and direct, so it is very hot and humid in this region or zone. Then comes the temperate zone. So temperate zone, it extends from Tropic of Capricorn to Antarctic Circle in the southern hemisphere and Tropic of Cancer to Arctic Circle in the northern hemisphere. Or in other words, we can say 23.5 degrees south to 66.5 degrees south, and in northern hemisphere 23.5 degree north to 66.5 degree north. So this is a transitioning zone, okay, or a zone of transition. So the temperature here it is neither very hot nor too cold. So this is the temperate zone. And lastly comes the frigid zone. Okay, so frigid zone, it lies between in the southern hemisphere, it lies between Antarctic Circle to South Pole, and in the northern hemisphere from Arctic Circle to the North Pole, or 66.5 degrees south to 90 degrees south and 66.5 degree north to 90 degree north. So this is the frigid zone, this portion, as we can see here in the diagram. So this zone experience very cold and freezing temperature, and one of the reason is the slanting sun rays. As we know, once we move from equator towards the pole, the rays of the sunlight, it becomes slanting. So now what happens, these rays are not enough to hit the surface of the earth. As a result, the area or this zone remains very cold and it is covered with ice throughout the year. Now let us discuss atmospheric pressure. We all know air has weight and it exerts pressure, right? So atmospheric pressure refers to the force exerted by the column of air on a particular place. Okay, the instrument that measures the atmospheric pressure is barometer, and the unit of measurement is called millibar. Okay, here it is an image of aneroid barometer, because there are two kinds of barometer. One is mercury barometer and another is aneroid barometer, and this is a picture of aneroid barometer. The atmospheric pressure, it also varies from place to place, and this variation is caused due to several factors such as amount of moisture present in the air, temperature, density of the air, and height of the place above the sea level or the altitude. So distribution of atmospheric pressure. We know that the atmospheric pressure is not equal in all the places of the earth. It is highest at the sea level, and with the increase in elevation or altitude, the atmospheric pressure become less, because in mountainous region where the elevation is high, the air is thin, and since pressure is the weight exerted by the air, which means less air means less weight or less atmospheric pressure. On the other hand, on the surface of the earth also atmospheric pressure varies because of the unequal heating of the atmosphere. Okay, so generally the atmospheric pressure should increase from equator towards the pole, but it does not happen so, because it is modified by the rotation of the earth. So now let us see what are pressure belts. So pressure belts are the region on the earth where air pressure is relatively consistent. Okay, there are four main pressure belt. These are equatorial low pressure belt, 0 degree to 5 degree north and 0 degree to 5 degree south. Equatorial low pressure belt. Then comes subtropical high pressure belt, 30 degree to 35 degree north and 30 degree to 35 degree south. Subpolar low pressure belt, 60 to 65 degree north and 60 to 65 degree south, and lastly polar high pressure belt, that is 85 to 90 degree north and 85 to 90 degree south. So these are the four important pressure belts. So now let us discuss wind. So what are winds? So wind are the horizontal movement of air which happens due to the variation in the pressure. Okay, wind normally travels or moves from high pressure to low pressure area. Okay, so what happens is wind transfer heat from the tropical or equatorial region toward the polar region. On the other hand, it brings cold air from the polar region to the tropical region. Thus, it acts as a transfer of heat, as an agent of transfer of heat from poles to equator. Okay, so the direction of the wind, it is measured with the help of instrument called wind vane. On the other hand, the speed of the wind is measured with the help of instrument called anemometer. So this is an image of anemometer. So we know that the direction and the speed of wind are never fixed. Okay, and wind is classified into 4 types: planetary winds, periodic winds, local winds and variable winds. So 4 important types of wind: planetary, periodic, local and variable winds. So now let us discuss planetary winds. So these winds, they blow constantly and continuously throughout the year. Okay, they blow at a global scale and cover a large part of the globe or earth. One important characteristic is they are very strong, definite, and they do not change their direction. That means if they are blowing from north to south, they will blow from north to south throughout the year. They do not change their direction. Another name for planetary winds are also called prevailing winds, or prevailing winds is the another name for planetary winds. Example: trade winds, westerly winds and polar winds. So after planetary winds, let us discuss periodic winds. So these winds, they blow for a certain period of time at a particular place. For example, monsoon. Okay, and these winds do not blow throughout the year. For us, these are mostly seasonal, and it is caused by the unequal heating and cooling of the earth's surface or the local differences in atmospheric pressure. Okay, so periodic winds, as the name suggests, periodic winds for a particular period. Now local winds, the name suggests local winds, that means it does not blow at global scale. Okay, it is a result of local difference in temperature and pressure. Okay, this wind, it influences or affects the climate of a local place only. They blow at a certain place and for a short period of time. For example, Chinook, Sirocco, Harmattan. These are all examples of local winds. And lastly, variable winds. As the name states, these winds do not have definite speed or direction. So they are highly variable. For example, cyclones. Cyclones, they do not have a definite direction or speed. Okay, and they are also very destructive. So now let us come to the topic of moisture and humidity. So moisture is the presence of water contained in the air. Okay, so when water evaporates from water bodies or land surface, it turns into water vapor. Okay, and this water vapor, it mixes with the air and forms moisture, and this is also called as moisture. Now comes humidity. So humidity is the presence of this moisture in the air at a particular time. It's called humidity. Okay, and humidity level, it varies depending upon the amount of water vapor and change in temperature. For example, when the temperature increases, the humidity also increases, and when the temperature decreases, humidity also decreases. The instrument that helps us to measure humidity is called hygrometer, and it is expressed in terms of grams per cubic meter. Okay, now let us see types of humidity. So there are 2 types of humidity: absolute humidity and relative humidity. So what is absolute humidity? So it is the weight of a water vapor in a given volume of air. So on a particular given volume of air, the weight of the water vapor or the water vapor content is called the absolute humidity. It is measured in terms of grams per cubic centimeter. Now relative humidity. It is the ratio of amount of water vapor present in the air to the maximum capacity of water vapor that the particular air can hold at a given temperature. Okay, and this relative humidity, it is measured in terms of percentage. And in terms of better measure of humidity, we take relative humidity, because absolute humidity, it changes with the change in temperature and pressure. So it is relative humidity that we normally take or use. So now let us see the topic of condensation and precipitation. So on a humid day, we feel uncomfortable, we feel sticky, because the amount of moisture in the air is high. Okay, so when this moisture or water vapor, it rises up, and this air containing this moisture, it cools down because of the process of condensation. Okay, and when condensation happens, this water vapor or moisture converts into ice crystal or water droplets. And when these water droplets become heavier, it falls down to the surface of the earth as precipitation. So this is the process of condensation and precipitation. So as we have already discussed, precipitation is the process by which the water vapor or moisture in the air, it converts into water droplets or ice crystals. And once it becomes heavy, it is unable to stay afloat in the air, and it falls down on the surface of the earth. And depending upon the temperature and other atmospheric condition, there are different forms of precipitation. For example, rain, snow, sleet, hailstorm. So these are all the different forms of precipitations. Rainfall, it is the most important form of precipitation, and it can occur in three different ways. Firstly, convectional rainfall, orographic, and lastly cyclonic. So let us discuss the different types of rainfall. Firstly, it is convectional rainfall. So in the tropical region, we normally experience rainfall every day. This is because there is a direct or vertical rays of the sunlight, so there is an intense incoming solar radiation. So what happens, the land gets heated, and once the land gets heated, the air above it, it also get heated. So once the air get hot, it rises up, it absorbs moisture, and once it reaches up, condensation happens. The same process, the moisture converts into water droplets, and it fall down as precipitation. So this is convectional rainfall. Easily explained in this picture. If you see this portion, this is the air rising up because the land gets heated, and once the land gets heated, it also transfers the heat to the air. So once it reaches up, it cools down to the process of condensation, forms clouds, and then once the water droplets or ice crystals are very heavy to stay afloat, it falls down as precipitation. So this is convectional rainfall. Now secondly, orographic rainfall. So when a moisture laden air, it is obstructed by a landform. So what happens, this air, it is forced to rise up. Okay, so it has moisture in it. So once it is forced to rise up, we know once it rises up, what happens? The temperature goes down. So the process of condensation starts. So once condensation starts, the water vapor or moisture converts into ice crystals or water droplets, and then precipitation happens. So this is orographic rainfall. One important thing we have to understand is the rain shadow area. So what is rain shadow area? What happens is, on the windward side of a mountain, most of the rainfall occur. So as a result, once this cloud reaches this part, it is dry or empty. So there is no rainfall on this or the leeward part. So this region is mostly dry. So this is the rain shadow area. Okay. So now let us see cyclonic or frontal rainfall. So cyclonic and frontal rainfall involves two different masses of air. One mass, it is hot air, and another is cold air. So when hot air and cold air meets, what happens is, the cold mass of air, it is heavier, so it forces the warm mass of air to rise up. Since this is cold air, okay, so it forces the warm air. This is warm, this is cold. So once the warm air it is forced to go up, there is a formation of boundary, or this is called front. Okay, and the same process also follows here. The warm air it goes up, condensation happens, cloud formation, water droplets, and then rainfall happens. So this rainfall normally occurs on the path of the cyclones. So that is why it is called cyclonic rainfall or frontal rainfall. Okay. So with this we have concluded the chapter. So now let us see the important points that we have discussed in the chapter. So weather, it is the day-to-day condition of an atmosphere of a place at a particular time. Climate on the other hand is the average weather condition of a place for a long period of time. Okay. Temperature, it is the degree of hotness or coolness of the air. It is measured in Celsius degree. Insolation, it is the amount of solar radiation or incoming solar radiation. The temperature, it is not equally distributed, and there are various factors behind it, such as latitude, altitude, wind, ocean currents, and distribution of land and water. Atmospheric pressure refers to the weight exerted by a column of air on a particular place. It also varies due to latitude, altitude, and amount of moisture present in the air. Wind, air that moves horizontally due to the variation in pressure. Atmospheric pressure is called wind. There are four major types of wind: planetary, periodic, local, and variable. Humidity. Humidity is the presence of moisture in the air. And lastly, precipitation. Rainfall is the most important form of precipitation, and there are three important types of rainfall: convectional, orographic, and frontal. So with this, I conclude the chapter. I hope this lecture video was able to clarify all your doubts regarding this chapter, and we will again meet in our next video lecture. Thank you.